Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Great American Story. And boy, do we have a story for you today. I'm Ron Hoon, along with John Noetzel. John is the creator of The Great American Story. John, how did you stumble across this not so widely known story in the first place?
Yeah, this one is, I kind of, you're right, I stumbled upon this one hiking, actually, oddly enough, in the Black Hills of South Dakota. One summer, I was up there with my wife and decided to go for a hike, and I found this trail that kind of meandered through parts of the Black Hills, and you wander out into this giant bowl cut out in the hills. I think it's a natural bowl, but there's a plaque there, and this plaque says the stratosphere balloon was launched from here, and it rose to a record of 72,000 feet, and there's a whole story behind that. And so I stumbled upon this really cool moment from history, and I thought, what a great idea for an episode.
You could make an argument that America's space program began in this quiet little forested glade in the mountains of South Dakota. And the story that you're going to hear today regarding all of this is really pretty incredible.
100%. I thought that was one of the coolest things about it, is really the space age really started. I mean, we're talking the 30s, the early 1934, but so we were still decades away from sending a man to the moon and orbiting the Earth and whatnot. But there was a lot of scientific interest in studying the atmosphere, the stratosphere, beyond just, what we could see. Man wanted to explore the boundaries.
And as we take a look at what was going on in the world, in our country at that time, the 1930s were fascinating.
They were.
I mean, we had World War I had come and gone. But there were already in the 30s rumblings out of Europe that worried a lot of people in this country.
Sure.
That possibility of another war coming. The Roaring '20s had come to an end. We had entered the Great Depression, and yet technology continued its advance.
Yeah.
And we needed, from a military standpoint, I think, John, to stay focused. And one of the big takeaways coming out of World War I was, by the time that was over and everything that transpired in the years then ensuing after that, it became very obvious that the next war was not just going to be fought on the ground.
Right.
It was going to be fought in the skies as well, and we had better be ready for it.
Yeah, and as we'll see, these voyages, which there were two voyages, gained invaluable information and really technology that helped us in World War II.
Yeah. Well, you think about today, and we should all be concerned about the possibility of drone warfare.
Sure.
Again, we don't know for sure what's going on in the skies necessarily, particularly in other countries. But we'd better be prepared and filled with knowledge about it because of the mysteries of what's going on up there. And so this is similar. I mean, this is almost 100 years ago when you really think about it here, at least 90 years ago. But the questions were things like, well, what if aircraft were able to fly so high that they would be difficult to spot with the naked eye and therefore bring them down if we're ever in a situation where the enemy is flying well above us. So, I mean, they had to basically be able to figure out a way to get up there even higher than man had ever gone before, to be able to analyze what was going on at that level, which, today planes fly at 36,000 feet. But back in those days, you had to get up there as high as you possibly can. We also knew that the Soviets were conducting maybe somewhat similar experiments, so we had to be ready to go.
And there was the scientific end of this too. There was a thirst for knowledge, I would say, especially with cosmic radiation and the where it came from, where it originated from, its behavior, and a lot of this even went down to the like knowledge about the atom. I mean, there were deeply scientific questions that were wanting to be answered, and amazingly, these balloon launches, which we'll see there were 2 of them, provided. And as we get into it, we're in the Black Hills of South Dakota. It's this, I'll just tell you from experience and from some pictures you'll see here, it's a bowl in the middle, not in the middle of the Black Hills, but on the edge of the Black Hills, about 12 miles outside of Rapid City.
Okay, how far from Mount Rushmore?
You're less than 20 miles. It's probably 12, 15 miles from Mount Rushmore. Okay. So you're pretty close. Yeah. And as this was in the 30s, they decided, we want to fund this balloon launch. They partnered with the National Geographic Society to raise the funds. Rapid City became this bustling town, and the whole community rallied around it. They built this town, really, this little town at the bottom of this, they call it the Strato-Bowl. And and they began work to try to launch a balloon into the stratosphere. That was the goal. And there were 2 balloons, Explorer 1, Explorer 2. Explorer 2 was a result of Explorer 1 not failing. Right. So Explorer 1, 1934, it was a balloon that was a hydrogen-filled balloon. Yeah. You would think that they would learn from the Hindenburg, but maybe they learned on number 2. But, they packed these things with instruments. They waited for weather. There was all kinds of factors that went into these experiments, but they launched that balloon on July 28th, 1934.
I guess it was helpful. I'm not going to say that the National Geographic was being used as cover for our military efforts.
Yep.
But it certainly helped to have a partner like that, because it could then also legitimately be a scientific experiment, as well as answering all kinds of military questions that we then would need to know for future years. One of the questions then would be, John, who would they find who would be brave enough, right?
Yeah.
A risk-taking enough to know how to deal with the instrumentation, the unexpected developments when you're up there.
No question.
To be able to take photographs from a height that had never been taken before, and they found him in a guy named Albert W. Stevens.
U.S. Army Air Forces. Yeah, they had 3 guys in this gondola. This little gondola interestingly enough, they made these gondolas out of material that was premiered at the World's Fair.
Oh, is that
right? Yes, Century of Progress. Remember, we talked about that, about the World's Fairs and how technology was introduced to the public. So anyway, kind of a side note there. But 3 guys got into this thing, and I don't know. I don't think I could do it. That takes some bravery to do that. I mean, and these guys got to 60,000 feet, and their first launch.
This isn't the first one.
The first one.
And the next one, wait till you hear how high that one went. We'll tell you about that in a minute.
But the balloon tore at 60,000 feet,
right.
And these guys end up parachuting out.
Sure.
And so you could say it was a failure, but they actually did recover quite a bit of instrumentation and information from that first one. But we actually have some Movietone magic from
courtesy of our friends at Movietone, John.
Absolutely. So let's take a look at this. This is the story of that first launch.
After months of painstaking preparation, the daring trio comprising Major Kepner, Captain Anderson, and Captain Stevens climb into the metal gondola, and as dawn heralds the day, the epic ascent begins from nature's amphitheater near Rapid City, South Dakota. Rising clear of the surrounding Black Hills, the largest balloon in the world heads for the mysteries of the stratosphere. Over Nebraska, the balloon drifts in the rarefied atmosphere when suddenly it begins to drop. Investigation discloses a rent in the huge bag above them. Buffeted about by the turbulent currents, it starts shooting downward, the rent meanwhile growing bigger and bigger. Soon the bag is ripped to shreds. 3 men imprisoned in the sky, for human lungs are far too frail to withstand these altitudes. At 20,000 feet, they open the porthole. Shortly thereafter, they jump for their lives. And thus it often goes with the best laid schemes of mice and men. A total wreck on the drought-ruined cornfield of one Solomon Johnson, 4.5 miles out of Loomis, Nebraska. Listen to Captain Stevens tell of the great adventure.
We decided the time had come when we had to make up our minds to either jump or stay with the balloon. And at that time, they noticed the altimeter reading, which was then 5,000 feet above sea level, and decided we had better jump. So Anderson and Kepner, who were on the outside, apparently used their own judgment and jumped right away. And I suppose that there was a less than 2 or 3 seconds difference between the jumping of all 3 men. We hope to make the flight over again on some future date.
Well, glad those parachutes worked the way they did, John.
That would have been hairy, jumping out of that thing. And from my research, it was not an easy exit for those guys.
How so?
Well, like one of them, like their leg got caught and they got pulled back in. It was work to get out of that thing, and they jumped lower than 10,000 feet.
Right.
And parts of the balloon that had exploded was falling on the parachute of one of the guys that's falling. So a couple of quick things on this, which I found pretty interesting. This balloon required 2.5 acres of cotton fabric. It had to be cut into 3,320 pieces, passed through a rubberizing machine 30 times. It was fabricated without stitches. All the pieces were glued together, which consumed more than 300 gallons of cement made from pure rubber, dissolved in gasoline and benzol. Wow. And it weighed an incredible 5,000 pounds when it was finished.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
So it all, they didn't jump at 60,000 feet. It was closer to, I think you said around 10,000 feet when they finally had to jump.
They did.
And all 3 of them survived, but you'll find out coming out of the next segment what happened after that, and the story even gets more interesting. But John, what have you got now?
Hey, trivia question time. During the record-breaking flight of Explorer 2, which we'll talk about in the next segment, the team had to solve a major problem. The scientific instruments were freezing and failing in the minus 70 degrees stratospheric cold.
Seems incredible.
What method did they employ to keep their precision cameras and barometers functioning?
Okay.
We'll have the answer when we come back.
All right, we welcome you back now. John asked a pretty tough question with 3 answers, all of which seem somewhat implausible.
Right?
So we're going to have to come up with the answer here in a minute.
Okay, put your scientific helmet on here because, so during the flight of Explorer 2, the team had to solve a major problem. They had freezing temperatures, minus 70 degrees outside in the stratosphere. So what method did they employ to keep their precision cameras and barometers functioning? A, they wrapped the instruments in heavy wool blankets soaked in goose fat. B, they used electric heating strips powered by the world's first large-scale dry cell batteries. Or C, they painted the gondola half black, half white to regulate the temperature.
Okay, I think that if they had gone with goose fat, even though I want to choose that one, John,
Yep.
There would have been worries about the equipment.
Sure.
So I think I'm going to eliminate that one, which usually whichever one I eliminate first is the correct answer. But I think I'm going to say they used electric heating strips from dry cell batteries.
Yeah, I mean, all of these feel like they could be plausible, but it's actually C.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, they actually painted it. If they had painted it all black, it would basically cook them because of the cosmic rays.
All right.
All white, they'd freeze.
Yeah.
So you can see in the pictures that they're half black, half white, and it maintained a comfortable 43 degrees inside there. At 13,000 degrees or 13,000 feet pressurized.
Yeah.
So
a lot of what they learned about this capsule informed NASA's plans decades
No doubt.
later.
Yes.
In terms of manned spaceflight
Yeah.
and what was going to be happening there. Really, when you think about it, I know in a moment now we're going to take you and advance the story to what was called Explorer 2, the second launch. But in this first launch, John, I feel like the balloon could have failed, which it did.
It did.
But the capsule could not have failed. Even at 60,000 feet, if it were to have suddenly depressurized, I don't think they would have made it.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's 70 below zero.
70 below zero.
Yeah.
Well, the first one failed, like you said. So a year later, they're doing this again. They insured the first one so well that they had money to build.
Is that right?
Yeah, they took out such a great insurance policy on it that they were able to move into this Explorer 2. So they went from hydrogen to helium now.
Okay,
So but that meant that they needed a bigger balloon because they needed more lifting capacity. Hydrogen had you didn't need as much area for lifting. So a bigger balloon, and it's a year later. They go to they get everything prepared. They're down to 2 pilots on this one, and a backup pilot, and they go to inflate it, and surprise, the balloon bursts. So we have some Movietone footage of that. So let's take a look at that.
The flight that turned out to be an explosion, bringing out the gondola after long weeks of waiting. The weather is right. Bright hopes of soaring to where the air ends. False hopes. But turn on the helium gas. She begins to inflate. The United States has helium, uninflammable. Captain A.W. Stevens in the middle, he's in command. 3 a.m., strange night scene, stage lighting among the South Dakota hills. Pressure of helium, something happens. Something weakens, something gives way, sudden, startling. Lucky for them, it isn't blazing hydrogen that's going to burst. Caught by the Movietone camera waiting for weeks. A collapsing, sprawling gas bag ends this year's attempt of Captain Stevens to explore the stratosphere.
Well, you have to be prepared for the unexpected when you literally are pioneering spaceflight.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now, basically you've had one kind of semi-failure. At least they got up to 60,000. Yeah. And now, in part 2 of the story, they can't even get the thing inflated.
Yeah.
You would think they would be a bit deflated. But it didn't take long before they were back up trying it again.
They repaired it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they repaired it. And actually, they found a tear in the balloon the day of I think it was the day of the launch, that was 17 feet long. And they ended up repairing that. So they were determined, which is pretty cool.
Right.
And then the second launch went off without a hitch. And again, we're in the Black Hills. There's 50,000 people that had come out to watch this.
Yeah.
And they're just lined around this bowl. And I have an affinity for the Black Hills. I just think this place is just really amazing. And when you learn the history, it's just really cool. But so now they have to wait for weather. So now it's in November. It's freezing cold.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, so attempt number 1 with Explorer 1 was July of 1934.
Yep.
And weather's great that time of year in Nebraska and the Dakotas, right?
Yes.
And then a year later, it's July. Everything's, on track. And then they have to repair this 17-foot tear. And by the time they're all set and ready to go, John, they're in November. And you just wondered if maybe some of the planners thought, should we try this again now or wait to get through winter?
Are you wondering what the pilots were thinking too? Are they kind of going,
yes, right?
Is this an omen? Is this a bad thing? But no, they launched in the cold of November.
Yeah.
And were extremely successful. Now they're getting higher. They got higher than the first Explorer.
And you wonder what they were thinking as they surpassed 60,000 feet. Now, remember, where everything's in history is in the rearview mirror. But man had never been even to this level before, 60,000. And all of a sudden, I'm sure their altimeters are telling them, and they're approaching 65,000 and 70,000.
They're about to set a record that's going to hold for over 20 years.
Yeah.
Nobody's been that high.
Right.
And
I mean, they could see the curve of the Earth.
They could. There's pictures.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll show them. We'll put those up. But,
sure.
It just amazing that they, and I want to say that they could have even gone further, but they had to save their ballast in order to get back down. So there was thought of actually going a little bit further.
Yeah, the ballast was sort of important.
Kind of an important thing.
I mean, you didn't want to just float away, right?
And interestingly, they stayed within the confines of South Dakota. They never left the state. When they came down, they came down about 250 miles.
Well, the first time they landed in a farmer's field in Nebraska, and I would love to have seen an interview with that guy, with that farmer.
Yeah.
Like, what just came?
Right?
But here they are now the second time around, and they land where in South Dakota?
White Lake. I believe it was White Lake. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just really fascinating. And I think the whole curvature of the Earth thing is really cool. And, they communicated with a jetliner while they were up there.
Yes.
That was, I believe, coming from China. It was like a Pan Am airline.
Really?
It was configured with radios, and they were communicating with NBC, who had put some equipment in there. So there was that really was a valuable thing that they learned, the technology of communication, of point-to-point communication, radio communication, which was invaluable in World War II. Yes. So these things helped develop, the things that they learned in these balloons helped develop aircraft that fought in World War II, fighters and bombers.
Oh, yes.
The design of B-29 bombers. Some of what they learned from these balloon launches was a direct result of the design of those. I
love to visualize whether or not they got a glimpse of Mount Rushmore on their way up.
Yeah, can you imagine?
It's 1935, and it's not finished yet.
Right.
And that was, by the way, that's been one of our single most popular episodes, is the story of Mount Rushmore. But of course, that's why, millions of people have gone to the Black Hills of South Dakota to experience that. It would have been very cool, if they had somewhat of an angled view just to see it as they're going higher and higher. But this time around, John, everything worked perfectly.
It did. And once again, Movietone has come through for us, Ron.
Okay.
We have a little package here from Movietone that details that flight.
Dim hours before dawn. After 6 weeks, the weather is right. So inflate the gas bag and bring out the gondola, the airtight metal ball. And climb in, Captain Stevens, and you too, Captain Anderson. You're bound for the stratosphere where the air ends. It's the first inch of the greatest upward journey ever made by man, from Rapid City, South Dakota. One of the aeronauts on top of the gondola makes a last-minute adjustment. He'll soon crawl into the airtight ball before they reach the thin, lifeless atmosphere above. After 8 hours, they've broken all records. 74,000 feet, 14 miles high. It beats even the unrecognized record of the Russians who were killed. They've been to the edge of the atmosphere where the cosmic rays play. Not the slightest mishap. The stratosphere balloon, as tall as a 31-story building, sinks to Earth with scarcely a bump. No particle of damage to the scientific instruments that fill the gondola. Treasures of scientific information. They land 240 miles from their base camp. The pilot, Captain Orville Anderson, and Captain Albert Stevens in command. On the left, they hitched their wagon to a gas bag and went the highest ever, almost to planetary space.
72,395 feet, a record that would last for over 20 years.
How's this for some perspective? We watch these Blue Origin capsules go up and come back down, and it seems like they're up there so high you can barely even visualize what's going on.
Yeah.
That's 11 miles. This was 14 miles.
Yeah. Enough to see, like we said, the curvature of the Earth, and just what they they learned from this was really, I can't stress it, how invaluable it was.
Hold on, did I say 17? I think
no,
it was
you said 14.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, just to be up there, I would think the exhilaration that they felt, John, would be something that, well, obviously they made their mark on history, and frankly, when you think about it, they basically laid the groundwork for America's space program. Okay. Sure, they got us prepared militarily for what was to come,
right?
With World War II, but they also laid that groundwork that generations to come afterwards would certainly be grateful for.
2 decades later, Sputnik would be launched. So, you're leading up to that, and you're right. It's the space race begins. If you ever get to the Black Hills,
this hike.
It's well worth it.
Go on this hike.
It's less than 2 miles round trip, and it's an easy hike, and it's really breathtaking when you get there, and you get to see a piece of history.
That's today's Great American Story.